Hello, I'm Katherine Court.
And I'm Kimberly Court.
And we are the owners of Pilates on Fifth here in Manhattan and the creators of Pilates on Fifth online. Today we want to talk about the real secret to dancers' legs.
Yes.
People are like, I want legs like a dancer. So first and foremost, if you want legs like a dancer, probably it's a good idea to dance.
So just like if you were wanting shoulders like a swimmer, you would swim.
And if you, well, we've narrowed it down to 4 things that will help you get those dancers' legs that we all want. First of all is straighten the knees. I know there's a lot of conflicting information. If your physical therapist or your doctor has told you never to straighten the knees and just forward wind past this section, but dancers straighten their knees.
Now the difference is that we don't jam back.
We don't lock into our knees. So if you could, we pull the patella up. So you can just stand. When you're standing, it's just the little kneecap, the patella, that's pulled up. So there's a great exercise for this. So Kimberly's going to sit down. So she's going to put her thigh, doesn't matter which one, here, because sometimes it's scary to start with things weighted. So this is a nice way to do exercise for the vastus medialis. Some people call it the VMO.
Which is this muscle here in the
yes,
inside.
It's right on the inside of the knee. It's the guy that's going to pull that patella up. And so you want that muscle to be engaged in the last 10 to 15 degrees of, or 5 to 10 degrees of knee extension. So Kimberly's going to straighten her knee. She's going to press into the ball and just watch that muscle and make sure that it's pulling the kneecap up.
And it can actually, do you mind if I say something? It actually start to engage before the knee is fully straight. Yes. It's not like the knee straightens and then the VMO catches it. When the knee is still bent, you can activate it and you can watch it and then keep it activated as the knee fully extends.
Right. So timing-wise, you want that VMO to be active throughout the full range of the knee extension. So that way it's protecting the kneecap, it's pulling it up. We find that many of our clients who come into the studio with knee injuries, the number one thing across the board that the doctor tells them to do is to strengthen their VMO, the vastus medialis. So this is a great way to do it unweighted. But then we also can do it weighted. So we're going to hop back up. And if you're doing it weighted, meaning your body weight, you would just stand, yes, bad ball, and just pull up your kneecap and then let it release. And you can see it happening here, pull. Now, I'm going to turn out now so that you can see that we do not hyperextend. So we don't have to worry about that ka-chung where you lock into your knees. But even if you do, if you keep the weight a little bit biased toward the balls of your feet, this part of your foot, then you can make sure that you're pulling up the kneecap. You don't want to just sit back in your heels and let all the weight just go into the back of it.
Right.
So you want to make sure that when you're working with your clients or you're working on yourself, you can just do little touch tests. Like poke yourself on the VMO and be like, okay, it's engaged or it's not engaged. And you can feel it pretty, you don't want it to be just like loose. You want it to feel like it's taut, like it's doing something. So that's number 1. Number 2, calves. Dancers, if you think about it, we spend a lot of time up on our toes, even like obviously there's point, but then there's fifth. Our calf muscles have to be able to lift our entire body weight. That's a lot to ask of one calf muscle.
Exactly.
So everyone just try this. Just open your toes a little bit just so you can see, and we're just going to lift up and down, and lift up and down, keeping those knees straight, because we just talked about that. Now, most people, we're not going to make you do it till you fatigue, but you'll be amazed at how quickly you fatigue. Most dancers can keep doing this and do it and do it. So we want to get nice, strong calf muscles.
Yes, and it also helps with the shapeliness of the leg so that you don't go down into the little cone, that you have a defined calf muscle. And the more you do this, doing the full length of the muscle, you don't get just one big bulge. You strengthen the whole length so it doesn't look like Popeye calves.
Right, you don't want no Popeye calves. Good idea. Next is stretching. Now, none of us has the time to stretch as much as dancers, professional dancers stretch. If you look at their day, they stretch like 4 or 5 times a day. So that's unreasonable for most mortals. But the reason they have the legs are so shapely is because they stretch along the full length of the muscle. Right. And they're not just stretching like hamstrings and quads. Like, you know, we all can do our hamstring stretch, we can all do a quad stretch. They're stretching the joints too. So
safely stretching the joints. They're mobilizing, as I know you're about to say, in all planes of motion, not just sitting into a joint. There's a difference between sitting into a joint and safely stretching a joint.
So you'll see a lot of dancers, if they do this, their knee just flies up to their chest. There's no congestion in the hips whatsoever. So, and again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. If you suddenly want that level of flexibility, you can't get it in a day. It's like months.
Yeah, and you're better off doing a teeny bit of stretching every day. Let's just say I want more range of motion in this finger, which has no purpose, but just for the thing. Then every day I should just sort of mobilize my finger. It's not like I'm going to one day take my finger and pull it all the way back and then hope it stays there. It won't.
So you want to stretch in multi-planes of motion and stretch all the muscles. Stretch your quads, stretch your calves, stretch your adductors, stretch your hamstrings, stretch, stretch, stretch.
Hip flexors.
Yes, definitely the hip flexors. And last but not least, mobilize in all planes of motion. So we talked about stretching in all planes of motion, but we want to mobilize in all planes of motion. So a lot of our traditional cardio, whether you're doing a spin class or on the treadmill or something, it's sagittal plane movement. You're moving the legs in 2 directions. our hips circumduct. We have been given the gift of circumduction. So if you watch any dance whatsoever, you'll notice that they're moving their legs in all planes of motion, and which requires a lot more muscle use as well. So that's just one of the things also. So if you're doing a barre class, it's very easy in a barre class to kind of slip into the whole thing where you're doing everything linear. You're either here lifting or you're here. And this is still very static. The hips are just moving in one direction.
Right, and also a lot of times they'll do just 2 inches up, 2 inches down, but actually dancers never work that way.
Right.
Like the grand plie is always a transitional move. Like you go into your grand plie and you come right out of it. You never sit.
Right.
Big no-no to sit at the bottom of your plie.
Right. So just make sure that in your barre class or something that you're aware that you want to move the hips in all the directions that they are able to move.
Yes.
And that's kind of our little tip for our secret to dancers' legs. So VMO, calves, stretch, 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 and mobilize the hip in all planes of motion.